Eve had a secret daughter so powerful that she actually defeated God himself. Sounds crazy? Well, she reveals that this God billions worship today is actually your enemy, hiding behind a cosmic mask. I'm not kidding. This comes straight from a banned ancient text called The Reality of the Rulers. This text was banned by the church and buried for over 500 years because it exposes something the church doesn't want you to know. This world is not what you think. This reality is a prison, a counterfeit created by evil beings known as archons to keep humanity trapped in ignorance. And Eve's daughter possessed the knowledge to break these chains. What does this have to do with you? Absolutely everything. Keep watching to discover not only who this secret daughter was, but what this revelation means for your own spiritual awakening and liberation. Get ready. The truth you're about to learn will completely change your perception of reality. The story many of us know about the creation of the world and humanity might contain a surprising twist. In the Gnostic tradition, especially in the ancient text called The Reality of the Rulers, there exists a radically different perspective on divine nature. Imagine discovering that what you've always considered supreme truth is in reality just a superficial layer hiding a much deeper knowledge. This is the awakening journey that Gnosticism invites us to take, questioning not just what we know, but who told us what we know. The Gnostic text reveals that the being who declared himself supreme creator at the beginning of time is actually a lesser being known as the demiurge, a cosmic craftsman who shaped the material world, but who is far from being the supreme consciousness of the universe. When the demiurge proclaimed, "I am God and there is no other besides me," he committed what the Gnostics consider the original sin, not Eve biting the apple, but this arrogant being declaring himself the ultimate authority of existence. Wow. Have you ever thought about how this completely changes our understanding of the Bible secrets that form the foundation of Western civilization? This being, in his cosmic ignorance, didn't realize that above him existed a realm of perfect light, a transcendent reality of which he was completely unaware. It's like that person who thinks they know everything until they meet someone truly wise. Suddenly, all their certainty crumbles. The Gnostic awakening begins exactly at this point, recognizing that what we call God might be merely a minor administrator of an imperfect reality. In Gnostic mythology, when the demiurge made his arrogant declaration, a voice from the higher realm echoed, correcting him, "You are wrong, Samael," meaning God of the blind. This intervention triggered a violent reaction in the demiurge who, unable to accept his own limitation, plunged deeper into darkness and chaos. Let's think together. How many times in life do we refuse to recognize our own limits and, instead of growing with the truth, sink into even greater denial? This psychological pattern that we all experience precisely reflects the cosmic narrative of Gnostic texts. The occult isn't about strange rituals or supernatural powers, but about hidden truths about the nature of reality and ourselves, truths that can be uncomfortable to confront. The demiurge, disturbed by having his authority questioned, began creating other beings, the archons, to reinforce his illusion of absolute power. These cosmic rulers, born of ignorance and arrogance, became the administrators of this imperfect material world, creating systems of control and limitation. When we look at power systems in our society, don't we see a similar pattern? Those at the top often surround themselves with others who reinforce their authority, creating hierarchies that benefit few at the expense of many. Gnostic enlightenment begins when we recognize these patterns, not just in ancient myths, but in our everyday reality. The Gnostics didn't see their texts as simple stories, but as maps to navigate both material reality and the spiritual journey. The true God, in the Gnostic view, is pure consciousness beyond form and matter, not an anthropomorphic being with human emotions like jealousy or anger. In our modern society, we're constantly bombarded with information, obligations, and distractions. Isn't this similar to the world created by the demiurge, designed to keep our consciousness numbed and asleep? Gnostic texts describe how Sophia, wisdom, brought some order to the chaos created by the demiurge, establishing patterns in the material world that reflect, albeit imperfectly, the higher realms of light. This is the first crack in the matrix, the first opportunity for awakening. It's like that moment when you realize there's something more beyond the daily routine, beyond the mundane concerns that consume our energy. There's an inexplicable feeling that there exists a greater purpose, a more meaningful reality waiting to be discovered. And it's precisely through this crack that the light of true knowledge began to penetrate our world, preparing the way for important figures in Gnostic history, including a daughter of Eve, whose existence challenges everything we thought we knew about our spiritual origin. Within each human being exists something extraordinary that Gnostic texts call the divine spark, a direct connection to the true realm of light from which we all originally came. This is one of the most profound revelations of Gnosticism. We are not just physical bodies wandering through a material world, but spiritual beings, having a temporary experience in this reality. Imagine discovering that, deep within your being, there exists an inextinguishable light connected directly to the supreme source of existence. It's as if we all carry a fragment of the true God within us, completely independent of the demiurge and his archons. This spark is the reason why, even in the most challenging circumstances, we feel an inexplicable call to something greater, a nostalgia for a home we can barely remember, but that we know exists somewhere beyond this material realm. Gnostic texts reveal that Eve wasn't simply the figure we know from conventional biblical tradition. In The Reality of the Rulers, Eve possessed a dual nature, a material Eve created by the archons, and a spiritual Eve, a powerful divine force. This spiritual Eve, representing divine wisdom, gave birth to a daughter named Norea, whose existence was deliberately erased from conventional religious records. Oh man, have you thought about this? All this time learning about Cain and Abel, and there was a powerful daughter whose story was completely suppressed. The Bible secrets really go deep, don't they? Norea wasn't just another character in the narrative. She represented humanity's very awakening, the moment when our divine spark ignites into full consciousness. And that's precisely why the cosmic rulers feared her so much. She symbolized fully realized human potential, free from the illusions and controls of the material world. When we reflect on our journey of consciousness, we can see parallels with Norea's story in our own lives. How many times have you felt that moment of crystal clarity, as if for an instant you could see through the veil of everyday reality? That feeling that there's something more isn't an illusion. It's your divine spark recognizing its true nature. Think about the inexplicable synchronicities that occur in your life, the moments of deep connection with other beings, the transcendent experiences during meditation or contact with nature. These are all glimpses of Norea within you, moments when your true divine nature shines through the limitations of the material world. Enlightenment isn't something distant or reserved only for spiritual masters on isolated mountains. It's your birthright, your true identity waiting to be rediscovered. Gnostic mythology describes how the archons became particularly disturbed when they realized they couldn't control Norea. The texts say, the authorities came to Adam, and when they saw his partner speaking with him, they became very agitated and fell in love with her. This passage reveals something profound about the nature of control and power. The cosmic rulers wanted to possess and dominate the divine feminine, the spiritual wisdom that Norea and Eve represented. Don't we see similar patterns in our society, where transformative knowledge and intuitive wisdom are often devalued, marginalized, or co-opted by power systems? Authentic spirituality always represents a threat to control systems because it awakens in people the understanding of their true nature and power, something no external authority can really dominate. Gnostic texts describe Norea as the Virgin, whom the forces did not defile, a powerful metaphor for the purity of spiritual wisdom that cannot be corrupted by mundane systems. When Eve says that Norea was produced as an assistance for many generations of human beings, she's revealing something crucial. This spiritual awakening isn't a one-time event in history, but an ongoing potential present in each human generation. My friend, think about this for a moment. What if each era, including our own, had its spiritual sons and daughters who carry this light? People who, like Norea, can see beyond the illusions and help others to awaken. The occult, in its truest sense, refers to hidden knowledge not because it's intentionally hidden, but because our own sleeping condition prevents us from seeing it. It's like trying to explain colors to someone who has never experienced sight. However, when our perception expands, we begin to recognize these truths everywhere, not just in ancient texts, but in the very structure of reality surrounding us. And it's at this moment that we begin to question not just what we know, but how we know it, opening ourselves to a completely new understanding of the Eden narrative and the surprising role the serpent played in this primordial story. Few symbols are as deeply misunderstood as the serpent in the Garden of Eden. In conventional tradition, this reptile is portrayed as the great villain, the tempter who led humanity to sin and fall. But Gnostic texts saw this story from a completely different perspective, one that transforms our understanding of enlightenment. In the Gnostic view, the serpent wasn't an agent of evil, but a messenger of higher wisdom, sent to liberate Adam and Eve from the ignorance imposed by the demiurge. Imagine discovering that everything you considered negative was, in reality, the catalyst for your liberation. It's like waking from a dream and realizing that the monster chasing you was actually trying to show you the way out. The serpent represents the principle of wisdom that challenges illegitimate authority, offering the knowledge that connects us to our true divine nature. According to the reality of the rulers, the prohibition against eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil wasn't a loving protection, but a deliberate control tactic. Of this you shall not eat, for on the day you eat of it you shall surely die. This threat reveals much about the nature of the demiurge and the archons. Man, have you ever stopped to think why a true God would feel threatened by his creations? Knowledge? The Gnostic answer is clear, because he isn't the true God but an imposter fearing discovery. The knowledge of good and evil, the capacity for independent moral discernment, threatened the entire control system. It's like a dictator who prohibits free education, knowing that informed people are harder to manipulate. Awakened consciousness is the greatest danger to any system based on ignorance and submission. When the serpent tells Eve, "You will not surely die. Your eyes will be opened, and you will be like gods, knowing good and evil," it was offering humanity's first true awakening. Gnostic texts reveal that the serpent was actually a manifestation of spiritual Eve, divine wisdom working to liberate her material counterpart. It's fascinating to think how this understanding completely transforms the Eden mythology. In your own life, you might recognize moments when your higher self tried to communicate truths that your conditioned mind resisted accepting. That intuitive voice whispering against conventions, that inexplicable impulse to question what everyone accepts as absolute truth. This is your inner serpent, not a tempting demon, but your own higher wisdom inviting you to awaken. When we practice deep meditation or moments of silent contemplation, we're essentially creating space for this serpentine wisdom to be heard. What happened when Adam and Eve ate the fruit? The Gnostic text says, "They ate, and the eyes of both were opened." This wasn't a fall into disgrace, but an ascension to true perception. The text continues, "When they ate, the light of knowledge shined upon them." However, there's a crucial detail here. They realized they were naked, not physically but spiritually incomplete. The Gnostics interpreted this nakedness as the perception that, although now conscious, they were still incomplete in their spiritual development. It's like awakening to the fact that you've been living in a prison, the essential first step toward freedom, but only the beginning of the journey home. This is a pattern we see repeatedly in authentic spirituality. The true Bible controversy isn't in questioning sacred texts, but in liberating their deeper meaning from limiting interpretations that serve control agendas. The demiurge's reaction to Adam and Eve's new consciousness reveals much about the nature of false power. He asks, "Adam, where are you?" demonstrating that he isn't omniscient as a true God would be. Then, upon discovering they've eaten from the tree, his response is anger and punishment, expelling them from the garden and making their lives full of hardship. Gnostic texts explain this wasn't just cruel but strategic. They threw human beings into great distraction and into a life of toil, so that human beings might be occupied with worldly affairs and might not have the opportunity to be devoted to the Holy Spirit. Recognize this pattern? In our modern world, aren't we constantly overwhelmed with worries, debts, fears, empty entertainment, and endless distractions? The occult Gnostic knowledge suggests this isn't accidental, but a continuation of the same system designed to keep our attention away from our true nature. However, just as the serpent entered the garden, bringing the possibility of awakening, so too in our current reality, there exist messengers of truth who invite us to recognize our true nature beyond material limitations. And one of these most powerful messengers was Norea, whose demonstration of divine power challenged the entire cosmic order established by the false rulers. In the Gnostic narrative, Norea emerges as a figure of extraordinary power, a manifestation of the divine potential that exists within each human being. Her story, particularly the episode with Noah and the Ark, reveals a completely new dimension of Gnosticism rarely discussed in conventional religious interpretations. According to the reality of the rulers, when the Archons decided to destroy humanity with the flood, it wasn't because people were sinners in the moral sense, but because they were beginning to awaken to their true divine nature. Imagine the panic of the false rulers when they realized their subjects were recognizing the prison they lived in. The flood was essentially a desperate attempt to reset the system, preserving only those who, like Noah, would remain obedient to the false cosmic order. It's a perspective that completely transforms our understanding of the Bible secrets that form the foundation of so many religious traditions. When Norea tried to board the Ark and Noah refused her entry, we witness a symbolic confrontation between the old paradigm of blind obedience and the new paradigm of spiritual freedom. The text reveals something absolutely stunning. Then Norea came to him, wanting to board the Ark. When he would not let her in, she blew upon the Ark and caused it to be consumed by fire. Holy cow, have you thought about this? A female figure with enough power to destroy the great work of the obedient patriarch with her breath. This is the kind of Bible controversy that rarely reaches the pulpits of conventional churches. Norea's power didn't come from external authority or hierarchical position, but from her direct connection to the higher divine realm. In your own journey of enlightenment, you might recognize moments when your inner power overcame seemingly insurmountable obstacles, moments of clarity, courage, or creativity that seem to come from a source beyond your ordinary personality. The symbolism of fire consuming the Ark is deeply significant in the Gnostic context. In many spiritual traditions, fire represents transformation, purification, and illumination, the burning away of illusions that keep us limited. When Norea destroys the Ark with her breath, she's symbolically challenging the entire system of conditional salvation represented by Noah, the idea that only the obedient are worthy of survival. In your daily life, you can practice this breath of Norea through conscious questioning of the limiting structures you've accepted as reality. Try this simple practice. Identify a limiting belief you carry, like, "I'm not creative enough," or "Spirituality is for special people, not for me." Now imagine yourself blowing on that belief like Norea, watching it dissolve in flames. Awakened consciousness has the power to transform the structures that imprison us, not through struggle or resistance, but through the quiet application of a higher truth. After this powerful act of spiritual rebellion, Gnostic texts describe how the Archons, enraged, tried to subjugate Norea. The rulers went to meet her, intending to lead her astray. Their supreme chief said to her, "Your mother Eve came to us." This is a classic pattern of manipulation, an attempt to use family ties and authority to induce conformity. But Norea's response is absolutely revolutionary. Norea turned to them and said, "You are the rulers of darkness, you are accursed. You did not know my mother. Instead, it was your own female counterpart that you knew." Here, Norea demonstrates perfect discernment, the ability to see through manipulation and name the truth without fear. How many times in your life have you felt that inner voice trying to alert you about subtle manipulations, even when externally everything seemed legitimate? Authentic spirituality always involves developing this sharp discernment, the ability to distinguish between spiritual truth and convincing imitations. When the Archons threaten Norea with violence, we witness the climax of her spiritual power. The arrogant ruler turned with all his might, and his countenance was like blazing fire. He said to her presumptuously, "You must serve us, as did also your mother Eve." But Norea, instead of submitting to fear, elevates her consciousness beyond the material realm. Norea turned with power and in a loud voice cried out to the Holy One, the God of all, "Rescue me from the rulers of unrighteousness and save me from their clutches, immediately." This moment represents the direct invocation of the true God, the appeal to the higher reality that transcends the false authority of the Archons. In practice, you can experience this type of connection through deep meditation or contemplative prayer, not as supplication to an external authority, but as recognition of your true nature beyond apparent limitations. In the most challenging moments of your life, this conscious connection to the realm of light might manifest as sudden clarity, an unexpected solution, or courage that transcends your normal state. And just as Norea was answered by a powerful angel who revealed her true nature, we too can experience moments of revelation that completely transform our understanding of who we really are and what our place is in the grand cosmic scheme of Gnostic mythology. The Gnostic narrative of Norea, Eve, and the Demiurge isn't just an ancient mythological story. It represents a profound psychological truth about the human condition that resonates powerfully in our modern world. Carl Jung, the renowned psychologist, observed that Gnostic texts function as psychological maps of the human unconscious, describing not just external cosmic entities, but also the various aspects of our own psyche. Gnosticism, from this perspective, isn't just an alternative religious tradition, but a sophisticated system of self-knowledge and inner transformation. The idea of being divine beings imprisoned in a distracting material world finds surprising parallels in our everyday experiences. How many times have you felt strangely displaced, as if there was something deeper and more meaningful beyond the surface of ordinary reality? This sensation isn't delusion or escapism. According to Gnostic wisdom, it's a flash of recognition of your true nature. The concept of archons as cosmic rulers who keep humanity in ignorance can be psychologically understood as aspects of social, cultural, and psychological conditioning that limit our perception and potential. Our modern society, with its emphasis on consumerism, status, competition, and conformity, functions remarkably like the archontic system described in Gnostic texts. Wow! Have you noticed how we're constantly bombarded with messages that keep us focused on the external, the material, the superficial? From childhood, we're trained to seek external validation, material success, and conformity with arbitrary expectations. We're rarely encouraged to question the very structure of reality we inhabit. True awakening begins when we recognize these conditioning patterns not as absolute truths, but as control systems that can be transcended through the expansion of consciousness. To apply this Gnostic wisdom in your daily life, begin by observing your own mind from a new perspective. Notice how many of your thoughts, desires, and fears are products of external conditioning, not authentic expressions of your deeper being. Practice the suspension of belief, that state where you temporarily set aside all your assumptions about reality and observe your direct experience with renewed curiosity. This is the first step to breaking the spell of the internal archons, the limiting thought patterns that govern your life. An effective practice is to set aside 15 minutes daily to simply sit in silence, observing your thoughts without judgment. Ask yourself, does this thought reflect my true divine nature? Or is it a product of conditioning? Does this belief expand me or limit me? This simple practice of discernment is the modern equivalent of Norea's act of distinguishing between the true light and the false claims of authority from the archons. The Gnostic text suggests that the great threat to cosmic rulers isn't direct violence or resistance, but humanity's spiritual awakening, the recognition of our true nature beyond material limitations. This understanding completely transforms our approach to personal and social change. Instead of fighting against power systems, the Gnostic path invites us to transcend them through the expansion of consciousness. Think about how practices of authentic spirituality, meditation, contemplation, self-inquiry, compassionate service, aren't just pleasant activities, but revolutionary tools that challenge the very structure of consensual reality. Each time you dedicate time to quieting your mind, each time you practice genuine compassion, each time you question limiting beliefs, you're participating in the same cosmic rebellion that Norea represents in Gnostic mythology. The true occult isn't in complicated esoteric practices, but in the simple yet powerful decision to remember your true nature. The final message of Gnostic texts about Norea and Eve is profoundly liberating. The prison we live in isn't just external, but internal, and therefore the key to our freedom is also within us. When the great angel revealed to Norea her true origin, he said, "You, together with your offspring, are from the primeval Father. Your souls come from above, from the incorruptible light." This revelation isn't just for a mythical character, but for all of us who carry this same divine spark. The true God isn't an external authoritarian figure demanding obedience, but the pure essence of consciousness that constitutes our deepest being. The most revolutionary Bible secrets is that the divine kingdom isn't in some distant heaven after death, but available here and now through enlightenment, the direct recognition of who we really are. In an increasingly fragmented, distracted, and materialistic world, this ancient Gnostic knowledge offers not just consolation, but a concrete path for personal and collective transformation. For when enough people awaken to their true divine nature, the entire structure of reality begins to transform, not through confrontation, but through the irresistible power of recognized truth. And perhaps, just as Norea challenged the false rulers with her transformative breath, our own generation is positioned for a collective awakening that could finally free us from the cycles of ignorance and suffering that have characterized the human experience for so long. So what are you going to do with this powerful knowledge you just received? Norea's story isn't just a historical curiosity, it's a wake-up call. Have you ever felt there's something greater beyond this limited reality they sell us daily? That feeling isn't paranoia, it's your divine nature screaming to be recognized. Look around. We're surrounded by systems designed to keep our attention fragmented, our spirit asleep. How much longer will you accept living as a prisoner when you carry within you the same power that Norea demonstrated? Begin your journey of liberation today. Question everything you've always accepted as truth. Dedicate time to silence, to deep contemplation. Reconnect with your divine spark. What would happen if you, just like Norea, refused to board the ark of ignorance and instead used your divine breath to transform your reality? The awakening you seek isn't in a distant book or from a guru. It's within you, waiting to be recognized. If this knowledge resonated with you, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. We have many more Gnostic secrets to reveal, more awakening tools to share. This journey has only begun. Are you ready to discover who you really are?